Hey, what's up guys? So in this episode of Is This Deck Good? We are going to be talking about plant synchro, those plant variants. There's so many ways to play it, but quick draw, there's the doppel, there's junk, there's so many ways to play like the whole engine. And first off, let's cover it. Is this deck expensive? Now, if you want to run cards like Quasar, Librarian, like those cards, they'll get kind of pricey, but stuff like Formula and Spore, those are relatively easy to obtain. So I'd say the deck is dependent on what you want to play first. You have to decide what you want to essentially run, especially in the extra deck. That's where it can get kind of pricey, especially with Quasar. Next up, we're going to talk about going first. Now, going first in this deck isn't really necessary. I know that if you open up 1-for-1 Dandy and quick draw, you can go off from those kind of plays, but it's not a deck where it has to necessarily go first. It doesn't essentially stun your opponent. It's not a stun deck. However, the playstyle of it is, what's really good with the deck is you can react to any deck really quickly, and I feel like that's what makes this deck so successful. Like against Inzectors, if Inzectors ever come back, you make Stardust Dragon. Against 6 Samurais, you make something that's over 25, and so on as far as what you're playing against. Like if you know the deck, you can essentially make what you need to make first turn, and then kind of take your victory from there. But it's not a deck I would say that stuns, so it's again not that important to go first. Now, next up, I want to talk about difficulty. Now, I would say this is probably one of the most difficult decks to play. Even I have a lot of trouble sometimes playing the deck, just because there's so many options, and each option will either, punish you for making the wrong play. And that's what I like about this deck. It punishes you if you make the wrong play. Whereas, Lightsworn is a deck like that, whereas you pretty much make the play, and you pretty much need to make the play. There's, one play or another play. There's not, 10 options. In plants, sometimes you have the option to make every synchro in your extra deck, and you're like, which one do I need for the right situation? Now, I would say this is a deck that is kind of difficult. You're going to need to practice a lot and experience what card you need to go for against which deck. Again, like I said, 6 Samurais makes something stronger than 25. Same thing with Down Rabbit, makes something stronger than 25. I know that they have Lance, and they have Lance, but basically the general idea is get a bigger monster against those decks, and against Inzectors you make something like Stardust Dragon, which stops destruction effects. So keep in mind, it'll be very difficult, and you'll need to practice a lot. That's the key with this deck. You have to practice, and you have to know what to go for against what deck. And next up, we're going to talk about, can this deck top? Can it top regionals? YCS? Yes, it can. However, I feel like the meta right now is going to be pretty much Dark Worlds and E-Heroes. Those are going to be the most popular decks. And in E-Heroes, they have these two cards which ruin plants completely, plus Super Poly now. But yeah, these two cards really wreck plants because the thing is, you're going to have to commit to the field essentially. And once you made that commitment to the field, they can just go Gemini Spark, and then they could ruin your play. Then you'll have a face-up Spore by itself, and then you're like, I can't do anything with it. And that is the problem I would say that plants have. If you stop them in the middle of the play, like Book of Moon, Hero Blast, Gemini Spark, you stop them in mid-play. That's essentially what hurts them, and that's essentially what causes them usually to lose. I know that sometimes they can still go off even if they get warninged, but yeah, that is the thing. If they are committing to the play and you interrupt them, somehow essentially that can kind of shut them down, especially if they've already went for their Spore and they already used 1-for-1. They went through a lot of their cards. It's a little bit difficult for them to essentially come back if they've already used all of their cards essentially. And also Skill Drain. I want to talk about this because some E-Heroes are playing this card, and Dark World's usually main deck at least one of these, and so this card is very problematic. So if you're playing this deck and you have trouble against Dark Worlds, I would recommend playing a little bit more MST or back row hate, because Skill Drain will ruin you so fast. Pretty much like Royal Oppression. When Royal Oppression was legal, if you flip up Oppression against plants, it was pretty much over unless they had the Space Typhoon immediately. Also, since Agents are back, be expected to play against this deck, and when this card comes out, that says bye-bye to plants. Pretty much Dark Hole or Set Raikou if you're playing Raikou. That is your only answer. It's so tough to get over this card and plants, and that is another fault that plants have. So if you want to take this deck to regionals, yes, it can top. However, you will have to play very, very well, and you have to side deck the right cards, pretty much just single destruction cards, even Regeki Break, just because Regeki Break will also deal with the back row, as well as something like Christia, which completely shuts down your deck. So I know maybe you can try Smashing Ground, but the thing is, Christia will hurt the deck so much. And I would say probably the three most relevant decks are going to be Dark World, E-Heroes, and any variant of Agents, maybe some Lightsworn, but I'd say plants can usually beat Lightsworn just by establishing a good field. Make Stardust Dragon, and then make something for example, Utopia, so they can't attack your Stardust, so then that way You can just go off next turn and kind of get over the Judgment Dragon, because you have so many options, I would say, as far as like what you want to make against them. So keep that in mind as well. Next up, we're going to talk about top decking. Can you top deck from 0 cards in your hand? Yes, you can top deck Debris Dragon and like blow up the field and get 2 tokens if you special summon Dandelion from Debris Dragon's effect. However, I would say the deck is a little bit tough to top deck with. And essentially, to make like, an establishment of a field, you need a lot of cards in your hand in order to make that play. But the thing is, if you are at like 0 cards in hand, it can be very difficult to really do anything. Like essentially, the deck relies off of remove from the graveyard, special summon Spore, and then like your different plays with like 1-for-1. Like you need a lot of cards in your hand in order to make the play. Plants are a deck where it's like your plays are essentially only as good as how large your hand is. That's why you'll see people ask how many cards in hand. Usually against plants, it is the best thing to do, because asking how many cards versus, let's say, a Lightsworn, it doesn't really matter, because they drop Judgment Dragon and clears the entire field. They only used 1 card. They only need 1 card, if that makes sense to you guys that are, just jumping into this game. That is something very important to take into consideration. Ask your opponent how many cards that they have in their hand, especially when you're playing against a plant player, because, again, plants is a deck where it's only as good as their hand. If they have no cards in hand, 1 card in hand, they're very limited to do to what they can essentially do. So that's what I thought about the whole Plant Synchro variant. I've been playing the deck for quite a few weeks now, because September list is coming up. I wanted to play this deck, but I feel like if I was taking this deck like to a very serious tournament like YCS or something, the thing is, I really don't like the side deck cards, because like Skill Drain hurts so much, Dark World's main deck, that like there's nothing that you can do when Skill Drain's on the field. You could technically go for Black Rose Dragon and Book of Moon, I know you can do that, but again, like Dark World's just wreck with the Skill Drain. It's only Skill Drain, but sometimes you can overpower Dark Worlds and just finish them before they get their plays up, because as you guys know, Dark World sometimes can have the problem of like not having the cards that they need. But yeah, also Dark Worlds, that deck devastation virus, that will wreck you completely, because everything you have is really low in attack, and that will hurt very much. But yeah, especially against heroes right now, I feel like it might be a bad meta call to play the plant variant, unless you can get something out really fast and just like finish off heroes like Quasar. But keep in mind, Super Poly, get rid of Quasar, and you're like, oh, I went and used all my cards in my hand to make Quasar, and now they just, Super Poly me. So yeah, I'd say it has kind of a bad matchup against heroes if heroes have this at the right time. Again, interrupting plants at the right time essentially will cause you to lose. Yeah, if you get interrupted in mid-play, generally that's what happens. Solemn Warning does hurt a little bit, but Solemn Warning hurts a lot of different decks as well. So that's my takes on the plant variant. So if you guys have any suggestions, to get around some of these, let me know in the comment section below. Maybe you can help out some other plant players, because these cards hurt really bad, and these cards will be seeing a lot of play in the next term that you're probably going to. So yeah, that's my thoughts on plants. If you have any suggestions for other things to talk about as far as the plants, let me know in the comment section below, because I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. But thanks for watching, guys. Asian Eyes White Dragon, signing out.